Okay. The dust is settled, ladies and gentlemen, on the raid information from BlizzCon. And now it's time to settle in and talk about exactly what's going on. Now, I know there's a lot of ladies out there that are going to say, I have no idea what's going on, Metro. And what I would say to them is, let's talk about it, baby. So, immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is this image, right? This is why we're starting with this. It's very important that you guys understand what this image is. This is the keystone of everything you need to know about PvE endgame in Mists of Pandaria. Wow, why did I just say that? In Warlords of Draenor is what I'm trying to say. All right, so currently in 5.4, there's the chart right there. I got to put the glass on. But anyway, you got your raid finder. That's not changing. All right, so step one, raid finder does not change no matter what. All right, understand that. Next up is the flex difficulty that was introduced in 5.4. That is changing, and that is now going to be the baseline normal difficulty. Okay, understand that it is very similar. It's the first difficulty of real raiding. You're gonna have to actually go there. You cannot port. You cannot like queue and port there like you can currently with flexible. It's not gonna work that way. And it's going to scale from between 10 and 25. They have said they might bump it up to 30 at some point, maybe even 40, but for now it's 10 to 25. Now, the normal progression that we do now, right, the progression you have to do before you unlock Heroic is now going to be called Heroic. All right, that is going to be for the actual guild's rating, But we'll talk about this in a little bit. It can still be done. Like, there is no gate, and you could do this cross-realm, all right? Everything below Mythic can be done cross-realm, something we should talk about in the future as well. Now, Heroic, 10 or 25. This is big news, right? This is shit in everybody's brains. 10 or 25 Heroic is now called Mythic. I like the name. It's going to be, 2 of 15 M instead of Heroic Guild. That's cool. Whatever. I like M's. But this is huge. This is huge. This is exactly what we've been fucking talking about. I've been fucking talking about this. The videos are still on the goddamn channel. Go watch it if you didn't believe. I've been talking about this forever. Ever since Paragon went to 10-man, Blizzard said, oh, we gotta change something. Because it's a fucking cop-out. I understand people think 10-man is harder than 25 in some ways, and maybe you're right mechanically, but that's not the fucking point. The point is that managing 25 human beings is a more difficult task than managing 10. And you have to have 25 human beings to beat the fucking enrage. They can't die, they can't rage quit, all that shit. It's a very important process, trust me. Mythic 20 solves this, doesn't it? I love it. I love it. Dropping our, 5 players from the raid, not my favorite thing, but since we could still do the other difficulties with them, it's going to be a good opportunity. The first thing now that we want to talk about here is we're going to go the basics of this, all right? Each raid difficulty has its own lockout. So you see Raid Finder, Normal, Heroic, and Mythic on the screen. All 4 of them have a separate lockout, which is great news. Really is. And it's going to be loot-based lockouts as well, like how Flex works now. So I can do Mythic, and then go do Heroic, and then go do Normal. You understand that? So what we're going to do is we're going to progress. We're going to have to clear Heroic first. The baseline difficulty for entry into Mythic. We're going to have to clear that, and we're going to bring as many people as we can. There's no reason not to. It's going to scale. We're going to bring all 25 people that we have online. If there's more than that, they'll have to eat dicks with their ass. And then we're going to move on eventually to Mythic. But once we're in Mythic, Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be progression. But the boss, since they all have a different, there's not going to be any more dynamic switching. You cannot switch difficulties. So if we're doing Mythic, we have to do Mythic. And if we're stuck at boss 2 and we still have 6 hours left that week, you know what I mean? It doesn't look like we're getting a kill this week, then fuck it. We're done with Mythic, and we're going to go do a Heroic. We have to start over, though, so that's the thing. And it won't be an easy thing. But say we use all 8 hours on progression, and we get maybe 2 bosses down this week, and that's it. Well, now it's time we go spend some time in Heroic. You know what I mean? Or maybe we say, like we do right now at Siege of Orgrimmar, we focus on 1 boss kill a week, we get it, and then after we get that kill, that's it. We go back to normal, like the Heroic difficulty thing. So that's a really cool concept. And there's also going to be Mythic Trash and Mythic Trash Loot, they say. So it's going to be a lot more of a challenge, I'd imagine, because some of the trash in Siege is a challenge on fucking normal. Anyway, without that, Loot is going to scale based on the number of players you have for the other difficulties, right? Obviously not Mythic. You're going to have a scaled number there. You're not going to have a scaled number there, but the other three. So if you have, I guess how it's going to work is, say we have 25 people in the raid. It's not necessarily always going to drop 5 pieces, but it's going to have a high chance to drop more pieces. You're going to have 10, you're going to have a very low chance of dropping many pieces, but it's always going to drop a certain amount. So that's pretty cool. I like that. It ensures there's no optimal breakpoints, quote unquote, that would limit raid size to get more loot. Anyway, yeah, so people would bring like 17 if they knew it was automatically going to drop, 5 pieces of loot or something like that. Also, what that does to me is it throws caution to the wind to me, because what I see happening is just like, I don't know, I guess it's unavoidable, but we would run it with 25 people. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I would want to bring an alt, and then, I would want to make sure that the gear was distributed maximum. It's just like what people did in Dragon Soul. They basically brought a bunch of mains, and then the rest alts. So all the mains got the loot no matter what. And then they would rotate like half and half, or maybe even like 1 to 4%. I don't know. Anyway, it's whatever. People are probably going to do that. I'm not going to do. I don't like that. So it's definitely an option though. And then there would be for the mechanics. That's the next thing you want to talk about. Is there a scaling random chance to have a third target hit, quote unquote? So that's the example that they've given. Blizzard has given, but look at it this way. Sometimes there's mechanics that hit 5 people in 25, and sometimes they hit 2 people in 10 men. Makes sense, right? That's how it should work. But what happens if you have 17? Is it going to hit 3? Is it going to hit 4? You don't know. So there's going to be a chance that it's going to hit 4, but it's probably going to hit 3, right? So sometimes you have to deal with it dynamically, and it's not always going to be the way. But then the example they gave was the prisons, or perhaps maybe even the balls on Norushan, right? You have to know how many there are. You cannot do the fight if you do not. So those types of mechanics are going to be a bit more rigorous. But this is up to them now. They have one difficulty to scale to. Everything else is going to be based off that. But if they do Mythic right, man, it's going to be the best. We'll have a little chat about that afterwards. But another thing they talked about is that there's going to be a key. So there's going to be 2 raids. This is the important part. There's going to be 2 raids at launch, very similar to Magashan Vaults and Terrace of the Endless Spring, or whatever it was called. That was a good model. I hated Heart of Fear, so just ignore that one. We're keeping that off the list. But 2 raids, 6 bosses in the first, and then 10 bosses. And it's going to be like a 1-week buffer period first, and then the 6 raid come out, and then maybe like a month later, the 10 raid comes out. So that's pretty good. I like that. Gives everybody a chance to get their feet wet and get ready for some progression. I don't know how they're going to do Mythic for the first boss or the first raid, but hopefully it's not too bad. Either way, that's how it's going to work. Now, in the 10 boss raid, which I believe is called, I actually want to make sure I know what that's called first. Black Rock Foundry. Here we go. So this is the one. Non-linear, 3 wings, just like ICC. So you're going to be able to choose which bosses you want to attack, but more importantly, apparently, this is what they claim. There's going to be some type of quest to get a key to the back entrance. Very similar to Karazhan. A lot of the concepts they're bringing in are BC related, aren't they? Or even classic in some respects. But a back entrance to a raid like this would be awesome. It really would. So if, say, we are clearing Heroic, or Mythic now. We're clearing Mythic, trying to do Mythic, but we can't get the last boss down. So we want to just do whatever the last boss, I guess it's going to be Warlord Blackhand. It's going to be the last boss, right? So we want to do Rend, or I guess it's not even Rend, whatever. His father. We want to do Blackhand on normal, the heroic difficulty now, but we can't. We don't want to do everything. So we killed the last 3 bosses in these wings, I guess, and you could forge a key that's going to allow you to skip right to Blackhand. Apparently, that's what they claim. But with all this in mind, obviously a lot of things are changing. Now, I want to address real quick. This is just going to be my stance on this. All right. A lot of people are crying about 10-man and 25-man heroic, splitting up and not, especially the 10-man scene. All right, well, let me explain to you from the 25 selection, right? 25s, unfortunately, are a result of 40-mans, right? When Classic came out, They had 40-man raid content, and it was fucking epic as hell. It was huge. Huge scale, large group. That's the way the game was meant to be played. I don't see how you've ever done a 40-man and not thought that. Obviously, it was impossible to keep that because the bosses were jokes. They had no mechanics. They couldn't have mechanics because there'd be 40 people dead all the time. You know what I mean? It would just be too difficult. So they pretty much had to have it. If you had 40 warm bodies and, you know, the resistances and some bosses, stuff like that, the boss died. There was no challenge, especially the first two tiers. I mean, I guess Neff and Chromagus were a challenge, but it was really just, can you raid and organize 40 human beings to be online on time? That was the challenge. Now, in 25-man, during Burning Crusade, they made the fights a lot more challenging, obviously. They gave some legitimate mechanics, which is a good thing for the game. But having 25 is inherently easier than 40. So they had to really step up the difficulty of the raids. This is why everybody looks at 25s in BC and says they were very, very difficult. It wasn't because they wanted to be, they had to make them. Because 40-man, 25-man is so much easier than 40-man, right? Because of the inherent fact that you now only have to have 25 people online. Do you understand that? You may not agree with that, but that's a fact. Oh, you can't argue it, all right? You may not, it's a fact. Having 25 people is easier than having 40 people, regardless of the mechanics. That's not what we're talking about. So then they had to ramp up the difficulty of the raids. They had to have crazy attunements, hardcore gating, stuff like this. This had to happen because then otherwise it would be even easier than it was in Classic. And everyone with a guild from Classic would just fly through all this content. So that's what BC was. Then Wrath came out and they said, fuck, you know, I don't know if this worked out. Let's have a 10-man difficulty as well because now we could really concentrate on individual mechanics. People could play with their friends, not have to worry about 25-man shit. And then from there, it got even worse in Kata. They said, all right, well, now everybody's fucking crying about 10 and 25, so people are doing 25 and then having to do 10 and then all this other shit. So we're just going to make one difficulty. And that was where WoW almost died, to be honest. Rating almost died for me. Because if they did not... I'm pretty sure at this point in the world, prior to BlizzCon, there's probably... I know there's less than 500 25-man guilds that are actually raiding heroic bosses. I'm not 100% sure on that, but there's definitely less than 1,000. And that's not good. The game has so many million players and less than 1,000 guilds. Right? So less than 2,500 people actually raid 25-man heroic. That's not good. That's very, very, very bad, in my opinion anyway. Now, the 10-man heroic scene is obviously much higher, but unfortunately, that's not the way the game was meant to be played, my friends. I have to say that with a fact attached to it once again. 10-man is easier than 25-man. I will state that as a fact, as it is indeed a fact. All right, you cannot argue that fact. I'm sorry, but you cannot sway me on this. It is not a matter of mechanics. It is a matter of having 25 human beings in vent. I have some of the best players in my guild that I've ever played this video game with, but continually having to manage them is a very, very, very stressful endeavor, and it is arguably more challenging than the actual mechanics. In fact, I would say in some bosses it is more challenging than the actual mechanics. Let's examine Shah Pride Heroic. We just completed that for our 6th kill, I guess? Yeah, our 6th kill, Heroic 25-man kill. There is 4 prisons that have to be unlocked by 3 people. So I needed to set that up ahead of time. Well, when we're doing the fight, there's some people who don't fucking understand that it is a mandatory mechanic. And they lag behind, they don't go there immediately, they take their time getting there, and sometimes people die. Okay? It is much harder to call out individuals in this sense. Because in a 10-man raid, you know exactly... There's only 2, first of all. I believe there's only 4 unlocks that have to be clicked. So that is obviously much easier to handle. You just have to have 4 people do it. In 25-man, we need to have 20 people do it because if one person gets picked up, there's no option. You're fucked. You have to have backups. So this is very difficult to micromanage from my end because people do not want to do this mechanic. They do not want to run halfway across the world. So I have to pick 10 people who I can rely on to get there, and that is not easy. All right, the next mechanic that we're talking about is the stack up for the Gift of the Titans. We decided on that fight to maximize our DPS, but at the same time not hinder other mechanics. We were only going to stack up for ones that were convenient. All right. Well, guess what? 25 people need to be on the same page when we're talking about convenience. All right, and if one person isn't, then we're like, where the fuck is the where's the fit? Come on, I need the buff. I'm casting. Where's the buff? You know what I mean? So that is a very difficult mechanic to handle as well for that reason alone, because we need 25 human beings on the same page here, not 10. Right? 10, that's easy. You get 10 people to talk about this, it shouldn't be hard. But 25 people need to all be on the same page. And they need to trust in my decision to say, we're going to ignore this one, but we're going to stack for this one to get the buff. All right, maybe that's a questionable decision. Some people don't like that. Maybe people always want to stack. Maybe people never want to stack, etc. Very difficult. Then the final point on this fight is the big ads, or the medium ads that spawn when you get the that fucking Waka Flocka phase, the Pac-Man phase, whatever. I can never remember the names of these mechanics after you kill the boss. But anyway, those ads have very little health, but the quicker they die, the easier the fight is, because then the person is no longer incapacitated in the other realm running around, and he could do damage to everything else. So for me to say, we have 4 mages, do you understand that? 2 of them are arcane. And for me to say, you guys need to stop what you're doing and attack this ad immediately, that doesn't work. In 25-man heroic, that doesn't work. People don't listen. And if everybody did listen, if everybody was 100% on the same page there, the ad would melt, which I imagine it does in 10-man, because I have seen it happen in 10-man. All the DPS switch because they are all on the same page. But in 25-man, you think, well, we got rogues and we got locks with dots and shit like that. I'm not gonna cast Arcane Blast on that. Are you kidding me? How long a cast that is and the buff and all? That's not happening, buddy. It's not happening. So I have to say, listen to me, you fucks. Switch to the goddamn fucking ad or we're gonna wipe. You know what I mean? And I have to get on the soapbox and we have to get serious about shit. So you don't do that in 10-man, do you? Because if you have a fucking bad seed, they don't mesh. They're out of the guild. But in 25-man, you don't have that luxury. If I got 2 people that aren't switching, I'd be like, you guys are out. Fuck it. We got 40 people. Let's bring more in. That's not an option. So managing 25 personalities is much, much more of a challenge, inherently, without any question. Now, 20-man, what they're doing here is they're making it so they're, looking towards the longevity of the game. Obviously, less people raid every patch and more people quit every patch, unfortunately, but 20-man is going to be the way to go. 25 is tough, but 20 will be done easily. You'll always be able, there shouldn't be problems finding good 20s. And especially now that the biggest bane of 25-man is that it could also be done in 10. And why would you ever do it in 25 when you could do it in 10? You'd have to want to do it in 25. You have to want to subject yourself to this. You can just do it in 10. It's so much fucking easier. All you need is 9 other people. It's only 10. But in 25, you need 24 other people, and I don't know that many people, and this guy's a fucking idiot. I don't want to raid with him. I don't want to raid with him. I hate healing. I hate DPS. I hate taking. Nobody wants to do any of that shit, do they? They just want to raid fucking 10-man. Meanwhile, I'm struggling to recruit people. 25-man heroic guild raids 2 nights a week. I can't get people. That's fucking done. Those days are over. Thank you, Blizzard. Thank you very much. Those days are over. We are never going to hurt for recruits again. 20 people is a joke to get. We got well over 20 right now. So as long as 5 people don't quit next expansion, we got plenty. Plenty. All right, so there you go. 10-man, I do sympathize because I recognize the fact that players have been playing with some people. You've made friends in these guilds. So that is the sad state of affairs when you can no longer play with just your friends. But I promise you this. I'll look in your fucking eyes right now and tell you this as a fucking fact. Once you start doing large group raiding, you will never want to do 10-man again. I promise you that. And if you approach it with an open mind, and you look into my eyes right now and tell me that you're going to approach, you're not going to be stubborn about this, all right? You're going to do it with an open mind, and after a few months, when you find a good group, a meshed group, a group that has actual leadership and actual organization, you will like it better. I promise you that. Coming from 40-man raiding, where it was all about the group, all about the mechanics were irrelevant, it was all about the group. This is the way the game is meant to be played. All right, understand that. So if you have any questions, bit of a rant, unfortunately. Hopefully people stuck around for it. I doubt they did though. So if you have any questions, let me know. But this is the future of the game. It's a fact.